top 1% of, where the top 1% get 20 to 25% of the nation's income and a third of its wealth. Growth at the top has not trickled down. Most Americans today are worse off than what they were 15 years ago. So I'd ask Mr. Joseph Stiglitz, when you will deliver your lecture, if you could kindly, mention about these subjects also. मैं उम्मीद करता हूँ कि मित्रों, हम सब लोग आज उनका जो भाषण सुनने के लिए आए हैं, तो हम सब लोग इनके भाषण का लाभ उठाएंगे इन्हीं शब्दों के साथ। और मैं फिर से एक बार अपनी ओर से जोसेफ स्टिग्लिट्ज़ जी का स्वागत करता हूँ। धन्यवाद।
I would now like to request our Honorable Chief Minister Nitish Kumar ji to please come and address the gathering.
आज हम सब लोग विश्वविख्यात अर्थशास्त्री प्रोफेसर जोसेफ स्टिग्लिट्ज़ का भाषण सुनने के लिए आए, और इसके बीच में कोई दीवार खड़ी नहीं होनी चाहिए। सहबाल गुप्ता जी बधाई के पात्र हैं, इन्होंने इन्हें यहाँ आमंत्रित किया और आज हम सब लोगों को उनको सुनने का अवसर प्राप्त हुआ। मुझे खुशी है कि पिछले 3 दिनों से वे बिहार की यात्रा कर रहे हैं। नालंदा विश्वविद्यालय जहां बन रहा है उसको भी देखने गए हैं, और जहां नालंदा विश्वविद्यालय था उसको भी इन्होंने देखा, और उसमें इन्होंने जो दिलचस्पी दिखलाई है, ये हम सब लोगों के लिए खुशी की बात है। अन्य जगहों पर भी गए हैं और दुनिया भर में अर्थशास्त्र के जगत में इनकी चर्चा है। बिहार में इन्होंने जो कुछ भी देखा होगा, लेकिन जो सबसे बड़ी बात है कि अमेरिका के होते हुए भी ये बराबरी की बात करते हैं। और मैं ज़्यादा कुछ नहीं कहूँगा, हम लोग न्याय के साथ विकास के मार्ग पर चलने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं, ग्रोथ विथ जस्टिस, और आज दुनिया की मांग है। जीडीपी का ग्रोथ ही ग्रोथ नहीं, जब तक ह्यूमन डेवलपमेंट नहीं होता है और जो विकास है उसका लाभ गांधी जी के अंतिम आदमी तक नहीं पहुंचता है, तब तक उस विकास का बहुत मतलब नहीं है। मुझे पूरा विश्वास है कि इस विषय में दिलचस्पी रखने वाले तमाम लोग इनके विचारों को सुनेंगे और उसका लाभ उठाएंगे। प्रोफेसर अमर्त्य सेन के बाद आदरी फाउंडेशन लेक्चर के देने के लिए इन्होंने सहबाल जी ने बुलाया, और फिर हम लोगों को इनकी बात सुनने का अवसर प्रदान किया है। मैं एक ही आग्रह करूंगा, नालंदा विश्वविद्यालय, नालंदा यूनिवर्सिटी जब दुनिया में और कहीं विश्वविद्यालय नहीं थे, उस समय नालंदा विश्वविद्यालय था, लेकिन अभी तक नालंदा यूनिवर्सिटी साइट वर्ल्ड हेरिटेज साइट यूनेस्को का नहीं हुआ। मुझे पूरी उम्मीद है कि अब स्टिग्लिट्ज़ साहब भी उसको देखकर गए हैं। ये भी हम लोगों की एक मुहिम चल रही है और इनका समर्थन मिलेगा। उसको वर्ल्ड हेरिटेज साइट नालंदा यूनिवर्सिटी को घोषित किया जाना चाहिए। बिहार में और अनेक जगह हैं जिन्हें यह स्तर मिलना चाहिए, लेकिन कम से कम शुरुआत तो हो। बोध गया के अलावे और किसी स्थान को वर्ल्ड हेरिटेज साइट घोषित नहीं किया गया है। तो जब भी कोई बड़े आदमी वहाँ जाते हैं तो मेरी दिलचस्पी इस बात में रहती है कि वे अपना एक नोट जरूर लिखें। सहवाल जी से हम अनुरोध करेंगे कि अगर उन्होंने वहाँ जरूर लिखा होगा, नहीं भी लिखा है तो अलग से भी इनसे लिखवाइए। और नालंदा यूनिवर्सिटी के एक इन्होंने कहा ही है कि जब नालंदा यूनिवर्सिटी बनेगा तो उसमें हम लेक्चर देने आएंगे, लेकिन उस पुराने नालंदा यूनिवर्सिटी जिसको रिवाइव करने की बात हो रही है, उसके लिए जो प्रयास चल रहा है उसमें इनका सहयोग मिले। तो मैं इन्हीं शब्दों के साथ इनका स्वागत करता हूं और आप भी सुनिए, हम भी सुनने ही आए हैं, सुनाने नहीं आए। हम लोग तो एक दूसरे को सुनते और सुनाते रहते हैं। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
I would now like to request Professor Joseph Stiglitz to please deliver the ADRI Foundation Lecture on Redefining Capitalism.
Chief Minister, ministers, guests, it's a real pleasure to be here to give this foundation lecture. When I mentioned, I was interested that you mentioned my co-author, Partha Dasgupta. And when I recently mentioned to him that I was coming to Patna, he shared with me his fond memories of having grown up here and wished me to convey his best wishes to everybody here. I've had a very interesting few days in Bihar, including visiting Nalanda, which I think should be a World Heritage Site. The fact that Bihar has the oldest university in the world means that it should again become a center for learning, and not just for Bihar, but for the whole world. And the ambitions of Nalanda, I think, are admirable, and I wish you all the best in achieving, and I hope I can help in your striving to achieve this. The subject of my talk this afternoon is redefining capitalism. The global financial crisis served to remind us that markets on their own are neither necessarily efficient or stable. I say remind us because actually, if you look over the history of capitalism, there have been crises over and over again. This is just the first crisis we've had of this magnitude in the United States or in the global economy in 75 years. But actually, if you look at it from the perspective of the world and the perspective of history, capitalism, since the beginning, has been marked by repeated crises. And more recently, we had the East Asia crisis, we had crises in Latin America, in Russia. The long history of failures of communism and dirigious state-driven dominated growth has also showed that this approach is also not likely to work. The implication is that there needs to be a balance between the state and the market. There has been virtually no successful development where there has not been such a balance. There has been no success where governments have not played an important role. And there has been no success where markets have not played an important role. To mention but two examples, the region in the world in which there has been the most success is almost surely in development has been almost surely East Asia. And in East Asian development, the state played a critical role in shaping the economic strategies. And this is not only true in China, but in almost all of the East Asian countries. But it's also true even in the United States in its development period in the 19th century. In the 19th century, the U.S. was largely an agricultural economy, just like India is today. The success of the U.S. in moving from dependence on agriculture into industry is really a result of U.S. government. Agricultural research, the fruits of which were brought to farmers by agricultural extension services, were all organized by the U.S. government. Even telecom, which we think of as the central industry of success of the 21st century, telecom began in the 19th century with the telegraph. And in the 19th century, the U.S. government played a critical role in testing out this new technology. After it tested it out and showed that it could work, it left it to the market to implement this new technology. But the market on its own was not able to do this. More recently, the most dramatic change in technology in the economy at the end of the 20th century was the internet. And the internet was financed by government. It was a result of state action. And had the state not taken the action, the internet either would not have developed or would have taken decades to develop. So the implication of this is that even in developed countries where markets are working very well, state action plays a critical role in promoting development. What the right balance between the markets and the state will differ from time to time and from place to place, and will depend on the social, economic, political, and historical context. Capitalism needs to be continually redefined. For instance, the Scandinavian capitalism is markedly different from American-style capitalism, and the two are markedly different from Japanese-style capitalism or the capitalism in countries in Europe like Germany. And these have had different consequences, different kinds of success. The fact is that there are many kinds of capitalism. Scandinavian capitalism has been the most successful in bringing the benefits of growth to most citizens, and I'll come back to that later on. In this current crisis, Germany has been one of the strongest performing economies. And Germany, a relatively conservative economic model, Chancellor Merkel has repeatedly emphasized that it was because they had the European social model. It wasn't American-style ruthless capitalism, but it was a European social capitalism, a European social model that they attribute their success to. So one of the important implications of this is that one-size-fits-all policies won't work. Each country has to debate and discuss what type of capitalism, what type of market economy, what kind of balance between the state and the market is appropriate for it. In thinking about this balanced approach, we also need to take into account one of the important role that other players and institutional arrangements need to take. And I include in this a vast array of institutions like civil society, cooperatives, and NGOs. Again, in almost every successful society, these have played an important role. Many of you may think of America as basically a market-based economy, what I've tried to explain that actually America's success is a lot due to the successful role of government. I wish the Republicans would understand that as they try to make America unsuccessful, that our success is really, the government has played an absolutely essential role. But so have these other institutions, and they played an important role in the developing world as well. Just to give you a few examples, cooperatives are an important part of certain American industries. Those of you who've ever come to America and eaten Land O'Lakes butter, the largest butter, that's a cooperative in Minnesota that has become very successful. Many of the other cooperatives played a very important role in the agricultural sector in particular. The one of the most important changes in the developing world was the development of the hybrid corn, the hybrid rice, the Green Revolution, both in Latin America, the corn and the rice in Asia. That was done by the Rockefeller Foundation, supported by the Rockefeller Foundation in a number of their agricultural institutions which they've supported. Again, it was not the private sector that made these path-breaking changes. So what one needs to understand is that success is not formulaic. It's not just the market, it's not just the government, it's not just civil society, but getting a balance between the three.